Dave here. How are you? Now you may notice that in the intro there that the stream was running pretty slow, and one of the reasons was I had this thing still uploading to Instagram. I will turn this off so it's not going to suck the guts out of the stream anymore. Power off. There we go. Done. That was a bit embarrassing. Dave here, how are you? Today is the 7th of the 7th. So if you're in Australia or the United States or anywhere in the world, we will still call it the same day. This is probably one of those weird days, 12 times a year. First of the first, second of the second, third of the third. Obviously, you're 17 hours behind us, so when you wake up and watch the show or whatever, you know, I'm starting to waffle again. But anyway, you follow what I was saying. I ordered something from America a couple of weeks ago, and the guy was a little bit confused as to when I was telling him it was the 13th of the 7th. He couldn't understand how there was 13 months in the year. Anyway, by the by, let me have a look. I trust the stream is coming through well now. Now you'll notice that I'm set up again in a different area. I'm set up, we're going to be doing a fair bit of stuff on the wall here. So I'm going to read through what we're going to do on the show and get into it instead of wasting time. All right, we're going to change a blade on the bandsaw, and I've got my bandsaw set up over here. So we'll go through that process, and also because one of the members in the Dave Stanton livestream chat group has got the same saw as mine, and he just wants to know a little bit about tuning it, and I thought, well, I'll just go through a couple of things as well. So it'll be fine. Clamps, consolidate, space, and minimize steps. This is the big thing for the show. I came across this idea during the week and I thought I have to do it, but I thought this is probably something that a lot of people will also want to do. It is so easy and simple, and basically it's for my parallel clamps, these things here, whether it's this company or another company, whatever you've got, you may have, there's a few different companies make parallel clamps. Now, the conventional way to store them is on the wall, like that. And that's how I've been doing mine for years and years and years. They're all down there. And I thought, when I'm doing a glue up, of course, I glue up on this assembly table here. This table is basically my assembly, my in-feed table for the table saw, the works. A lot happens here. The return trip from standing right here to go and get a clamp and bring it back is 14 steps. Now, I want to make that one step. Done. Finished. I was going to mount them underneath the end here because I've got an overhang on here, and I was playing around with all sorts of ideas. I had clamps laid out on the table here to work out the best way to sort it all out. But I was thinking, you know, what if one drops off and falls on the foot while I'm, you know, mucking around doing things on the table here, and didn't quite put it back properly, and, you know, if the grandchildren in here and bumped one off, you know, it became a little bit too much trouble. So there we go. We're going to do it from there. Oh, we've got someone from Japan. Good morning. So we're going to do that. Track saw tip splinter guards. I'm going to trim or marry my track saw to the tracks, and I'm going to show you the way that I do it so that we don't have any of those little things hanging off the end. So it's a perfect clean cut. Morning, David. Viewers' questions. I've got a viewer who is tossing up between a 2.5 and a 3 horsepower table saw. Now, be aware that we're going to have different horsepower kind of ratings around the world. 240 volts and 110 volts for North America. I noticed that you guys have got different settings on your saws. So with Australia, a 10 amp plug will only go to a 2.5 horsepower saw. So we've got 240 volts. 2.5 horse is basically 1500 plus another 350 or 375. So it's going to be around the 1850 watts area. There's a circle that combines watts, amps, and volts, and they correlate to each other. So it's an easy way to work it out. I haven't got the table here. We've covered this before, but there you go. Oh, you're only just in for a minute, are you, Paul? Okay. Good morning, Alan. So we're going to talk about that as well, but not a lot, but just a little bit, if we get the time. Support the channel through Patreon and the Amazon links below in the description box below. So if you can do that, and if you can leave a comment after the show. Now I will secede, I guess is the word, that possibly you guys can't put comments in the comment area down below. You can use the chat, but after the show's finished, the chat stopped, but you can still use the comments area down the bottom, and that'd be fantastic. As I said, it's great for the bean counters. They look at, you know, how popular the comments are. They look at the thumbs up. If you can do a thumbs up, don't have to do it right at the beginning. If you like the show, great, do the thumbs up at the end. You might say, yeah, that was rubbish. I'm not going to give you a thumbs up for that show, but that's your call. But I'm just letting you know the reasons behind that. And if you've got favorite YouTubers, do it for them as well. Right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the track saw. So I will spin that camera around. I already have it moved to one area, but I'm going to spin it around down to here. Give me a second. Track saw. Where to turn that around this way, I'm guessing, and bring that up to there and tip down. All right, you may be able to see everything that's going to happen here. It's a bit bright, but not to worry. You won't be seeing me in the image, just the saw. That's all I'm after. Yep. Give me a second. I'm going to see if I can adjust that contrast so it looks a little bit nicer. Give me a sec. Video configuration, camera control. How's that? Let's go with that one. Okay. Does that look better? All right. Now, what we have, I'll get a few things here. I'm going to explain them to you as well. And I'll get down here. All right. Now, these are track joiners. Now, heaps of people make them. Festool make them, TSO make them, and this is TSO's first model. Now, it was basically exactly the same as the Festool ones, but they're aluminium. What they did, they've done 3 revisions. Now they've come up with this one. I don't know how well you can see that. I'll bring it up a bit closer, possibly, or I might show you on the other camera. It has a large disc here on the other side. So when you put it together, it clamps a whole lot better and tends to keep the tracks really straight. So what I'm going to do is, these are new splinter guards that I've put on, and they haven't been trimmed yet for the saw. So the easiest way to do it is actually join the tracks and then do your plunge. I should have really put those on earlier. That one goes in there. And there. Now, for the sake of a demo, I don't really have to tighten them up too much. Flip this one over and slide that in. Done. Done. And over again. Beautiful. So, there we go. I have a continuous track now. So when I do run the saw past, it's going to continue, even though ordinarily if it was only on the one guide, it would start to wander off. The saw, these guys here on the saw, on the back of the saw, these things here, have a cam, and they push it up against the side of this guide on the track, and that's why it goes so straight. But if I was cutting this, and this one actually came off the front, it would allow the saw to wobble a little bit. So I'm going to set it there. I'm going to make sure I've got overhang. I've set the saw to around about 15, which is going to be about 8, maybe 10 millimeters plunge. So I'm going to do a plunge here. I'm going to run past the join. There you go. Now that is absolutely perfect. It's magic. That's all I can say. that's the way to do it. It's so easy. So now I have the end of my splinter guard is going to be perfectly parallel to that guide. Normally, you would say it would stop being parallel about there, and it's kind of anyone's guess where it would have gone. So if you join the two tracks together, that's all there is to it. Then to do the other end, of course, you undo the joins, put that track down the other end, and away you go. Now, a lot of people have... This will be perfect if you have two 1.4 meter tracks, and a lot of people get two of the medium-sized tracks, which is the standard one is 1.4. For Festool, I think other companies is 1.2, some of them. So if you have two tracks and joiners, that allows you to cut larger stock. So with this system, that takes, pardon me, with two at, I've got a 1080 and an 800 here, but if you had two at 1400, it's 2.8, which is perfect for an 8-foot length sheet of plywood or melamine. It gives you the approach to the sheet and also the exit to the sheet at the other end. So that's showing you two things, showing you these latest things from TSO products. So they're I think it's, what's it called? A revision C is what they're called. And it, you know, there's a whole heap out there, whichever one you want to get, but TSO send me stuff, and you know, at the same time, if I think it's all right, I'll show you. So think about that, but that main thing was about doing that. All right, that's finished. Let me swing the cameras. Where are we? Back to the main camera and back to there. So let me have a quick read. You don't straighten the tracks out with a level or something first. No, you don't have to when you're just trimming. When you're trimming the splinter guard, it doesn't matter. To straighten the track, I might be looking at maybe, you know, a millimeter deflection over 2.8 meters before I straighten. So it doesn't matter just for that little part. All we're doing is fixing the splinter guard. To align the tracks, you get another track and put it behind, pull it all up, and then you tighten all of those little grub screws. That's how you do it. Steve Curry, morning, how are you? And no earphones. No, on that, no. The track saw doesn't really need it. You know, for 2 seconds they're doing a demonstration. I could have put the iPhones on, but yeah, there's only a couple of seconds. And I spent too many years in the building industry without earphones on, and you know, you ask my wife, she'll tell you, he's useless, can't hear a thing. I can hear, well, funny thing, I'll quick talk about that. I saw a hearing specialist. I was asked to, I was going to say something, I was asked to see a hearing specialist, so I did. And my hearing apparently is perfect, all the way through. He said, there's one pitch here that you can't hear. And I said, oh, and he said, it just happens to be the same pitch as a woman's voice. And he said it's common. I'm in trouble now. Anyway, she's aware that that's what happened. Now, what's the next thing? It's nearly 1/4 We'll move on to the next thing. And what I want to do is talk about 2.5 or 3 horsepower saws. Now, the question was, should I look at buying this saw here? And I know that a lot of people that watch the show own that saw and are very happy with it. Now, it's a 3 horsepower machine, very similar to the machine that I have. But this one here looks to me to be identical. It's got the same fence, you know, the cabinet looks the same except for it's blue, and this one can be plugged into a 10 amp outlet because it's a 2.5 horsepower saw. So I don't know, if the question was, do I need to go to a 3 horse machine, or would a 2.5 horsepower machine be okay? Now, you guys can have a chat about this down the side if you want to, and I encourage that. And I also encourage you to put comments in the comments section after the show as well, because this is a topic a lot of people will want to know, because in Australia you require a 15 amp outlet for that Harvey saw, where if you can get away with a machine that's a 2.5 horsepower saw that does plug into a 10 amp outlet, is that going to be okay, or are you going to lose something in the power and delivery? Now my thoughts are, I've got a 3 horsepower saw and it's fine, it never bogs down, but for 0.5 horsepower less, would that make much of a difference for what I use my table saw for? Now mostly I use my table saw for sheet goods, and also I find that it cuts through 2-inch thick jarrah with ease. And I know people that have got 1.75 horsepower contractor saws with an outrigger motor, and they say to me, just as long as the blade's sharp, Dave, I haven't seen any problems with it. So what are your thoughts? Make comment, you know, would you think a 2.5 horsepower saw would be okay, or do you think you need to step up to a 3? I know in industry, a lot of the companies go up to a 5 horsepower saw, but then again, they're probably going from a 10-inch blade out to a 12-inch blade, or they're going to a 415 volt 3-phase supply to do the 5 horsepower. Curious. I'm very curious. All right. Not a problem, Glenn. That's, as I say, they're my thoughts. And Glenn was the person that asked. I just read that comment from Russ. Papa Mo, you found that a clean sharp blade does the trick. You know, I reckon that might be the thing. So, I don't know. Do you spend the extra money and go to the 3 horse, or do you economize a bit? They look the same to me. I don't know, mate. Is it a coat of paint and a sticker, or is it, different factories? I don't know. And people would think that because I work a couple of days a week for one of those companies that I just mentioned there, that I would know the answer. Well, I don't. And you know what? I'm glad I don't, because I can remain ignorant and be happy with it. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that clamp rack down and we're going to put it here, but we're going to do a change to it as I'm going. So give me a second. I'm going to spin this camera around and then come back here for a sec, change the cameras, and we're looking at the floor. Here we go. Tip it up. We should be looking at the clamp rack pretty much now. Yep. Okay. So I'll whip all these clamps down. Now this is a very, very basic, and this is why I love these mats on the floor, because I can drop things on it and it's not going to worry them. As I said, doesn't matter if it's this company's clamp or someone else's. A lot of people have parallel clamps because they're extremely easy to use. I think Torquetta sell them, Jet sell them, Bora, Bessie, a heap of companies do them. So I'm not promoting any one at the moment. Sash clamps, I love them. Now my rack here is held up by 1, 2, 3 dirty big screws, and I'm going to use the Pro Tool. Switch this down a little, about there. Now when I use this drill, screwdriver, whatever you want to call it, I've got a 5mm internal recess drive Allen key style head on it, this little guy. So whenever I'm using this, I put the handle on and I put it in low gear, so it turns very slowly, because those things have gone in 4 inches and they've got a hell of a bite, and I don't want one hand snap my wrist. 2 hands, good control. I'll take the center one out first. And this one. The mouse has been here. Across the top. There's mouse droppings up there. Take that off, and then the last one, we'll back it out, and then I'll get a hold of it. One hand. Beautiful. All right. Switch cameras. Switch cameras. I'm glad to see you guys are chatting down the side there. That's fantastic. Because it's going to help mouse cam. He's not actually an ordinary house mouse. He is he's a native, and it's a marsupial, and they've got pouches. What were they called? It starts with Eki something, not Eki Thump, if you've watched the goodies. It's Eki. It sounds a little bit like echidna, but it's a... Look, he's got a triangular shaped head, like a shrew. It's not like a mouse's head. And there's a little colony live nearby, and they come inside here and just check out what's happening. And I don't mind having marsupials in here. That's fine. All right. So here we go. We've got the rack. Now, I made this out of plywood and conventional framing timber. The... go on. Mouse droppings, yuck. Blech. So the top section here is ply. That area there. The reason being, if I've got a clamp that's sitting on here, and if I just had straight timber along here, these are prone to snap because, you know, I don't have the multi-direction and the strength of the ply. Stanton mouse. There's a mouse in my house. Do you ever, do you remember things as a kid like Dr. Zeus? The Cat in the Hat. Excuse me for a second, I'm just getting something from over the other side of the workshop. Cat in a Hat. Do you ever make up names? My wife is going to be panicking right at the moment. Don't worry, baby. Do you ever make up other names for Cat in a Hat and have a bit of a giggle about what you can come up with? Yeah, I do. I do that. I'm a little bit lame, I guess. Take these screws out. Now the thing about this is these parallel clamps here are 125, so 1250 millimeter grip, which is basically a 4-foot capacity clamp inside. But overall, they're more than that. So you remember the tip I told you that these things will go another 70 millimeters inside as to what they say? Antechinus, that's the one, that's the one. Okay, a blue mouse for the blue mountains or for a blue shirt. So overall, this is just over 1430 millimeters. So it's about 1435, which is 56 3/8 inches overall. Now, I am a tinny fellow. So what happened was, tinny means, you know, things happen and you go, well, that worked out well, didn't it? Look at this. Ha! Don't you like it? This space here, I had all my exotic timbers leaned up in there against there, and I thought, oh, that's a perfect spot for them. This is a perfect spot for my clamps. Now I'm going to show you how very clever I can be, and that is, here's my rack, which is, you know, that's a long rack, and if I was to put that up there, I'd have to move that the power board that I've put down there, and all sorts of mucking around. I want to keep the dust extractor here because it's going to be really handy for sanding and doing things with the domino, etc. on the bench. As I say, this is all about trying to economize space. Look, I've got a beautiful, lovely big workshop here, and I love it. I'm very fortunate, but it's no reason for me to put them 14 steps return trip. 1 step, 14 steps, 20 steps if I'm working on the other side. All right, so what we're going to do is, and it's been done before, except for, you know, I take a little while to get the knowledge and go forwards with all this kind of stuff. That's 1480 millimeters long. I am going to cut this in half, but favor one space, one clamp extra. So I'm going to have however many across the top. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 holes. I'm going to cut this so I've got 11 holes across the top, and I'm going to put the 10 hole in under it, in between. So the clamps will be like that. And because of the lengths that I've got, it's going to work fine. So 21, I say, and 10 and 11. So let me go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, David, it would have helped if you brought something over here to mark it with. Pencil. I'll probably cut it at the capex out of sight, so don't worry about that. It's going to be a whole lot easier. Drop that down there. I've got stuff everywhere. Spin the capex around, get myself a pencil. This pencil actually happens to be a pen today. How are we doing for time? Oh, this is brilliant. This is great. So, pen and 11. So I'm going to have to cut it there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's going to work beautifully. Yeah, you guys might wonder why I get this silly smile on my face, but every time I get a little revelation, it's basic revelations. These aren't, how do we stop world famine? This is just a silly little idea that's going to save me a bit of time. And I get a smile on my face because I think, I don't know why. It just happens. All right, I'm going to spin. No, wait, I'm going to cut it over there. And for everyone out there, I'm going to put these on when I do the cut. Give me a sec. Making sure there's no nails there. There is a nail there. That would have been ugly. There's a tiny nail there, so I have to just favor one side. Turn the laser on so I know where I'm at. Oh, how good is that? Beautiful. All right, here we go. Now, I didn't cut it all the way through there on purpose. I had it up at an angle. So I'm setting the laser up again. I'm going to come back down again and just finish the cut. Done. All right. So now, yes, it's the little ideas. So you can see how they're going to alternate. There we go. First is to put that one up, and I don't just put it up. Sometimes, I rush things, and I would have just put it up. Oh yeah, that's fine. Nah. So the first thing I do is I get a clamp, and I put it on, and I measure the distance that I have from there to there, and I'm going to put a line on the wall that's at that height, but with about 10 millimeters clearance. I know that I'm going to get the space. I've got to have some coffee. Does that make everyone better? I need it to keep an eye on what's happening as far as the show is concerned. I've got a couple of small screws here. One that the clock was on. Now with this wall, I haven't got to worry too much because behind this soft sheet, this is basically soft sheet lining. So eaves lining, this is a compressed board. It's not asbestos, it's a fiber and cement. And then in behind there, I have 20 millimeter thick cypress pine weatherboards. And in behind there, I have the frame. Now I am thinking that it doesn't really matter if I pick up a stud in the frame or whether I go straight into the weatherboards because they're going to take the weight. There's nothing surer. Now I also am going to get a level, climb over the top of all of these cables because I want to make sure that it doesn't bug me when I say that. When I walk into someone's house, say you invited me around for dinner, we walk in, and Vicky and I will walk in, and Vicky will walk in, Vicky all smiles, hello, you know, bottle of wine, and I'd shut one eye, and I'd be lining up all of your door jambs and all of the external corners on all of your walls and making sure that they're straight and in line with each other. This annoys the hell out of me. I can't stand it. So anyway, let's get back to this. We've got 140 clearance, and I want to work to the underside of there, and we'll also get one of those long clamps. Where did I put it? Here it is. And we'll put it here, make sure that when it's there, well, that was lucky. You know, an easier thing to do, this is using my brains, is put it on the floor, raise it up about 10 millimeters, and then put a mark there. That's where I've got to go to. That's just saved me a whole... your house would drive me nuts. Would it, Ian? Sorry, buddy. I am the home inspector. That's, what can I say? All right. The level. Okay, that's my pivot point there. Nearly there. That's him. That's all I need. Two little marks like that. And I need to see whether I'm going to be giving this clearance up here. And that's fine there. Until it lines up is there. That's the end of it. All right. Now, look at this short space. I'm going to be economizing a huge amount. So it's going to go to there, there, and there. That's where it's going to go. Are you excited? Now, get the drill in first gear and in forward direction. And this one. I could feel around and see if I can find a stud. But let's put this in to start. No, she's got it. It's got a hole there. Sometimes it's a good idea to pre-drill these, because I'm sure I will have split something there, but you know, I think we'll be okay. That's got him. It dropped. The rotten thing. Why did it drop? That's better. All right. Moment of truth. Let's see if it works. Now, what we have to do is we're going to put this down here, but you'll notice that the slots, and this is something I just realized then, these slots have to accommodate those, and I've got to do new slots in between them. The other way is to step this out forward, but I don't really want to do that. So I need to do a whole lot of other stops, and I'll do that during the week. I'll do that during the week, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw some of those on now, and then we'll move on to another thing. See, this way you can see that nothing has been really planned. This is how it's going to happen. And that one there. So for the moment, it's going to be fine. Back up. That cap. 4. You might see next week that this has been put over here or down here somewhere. Yeah, and that's a possibility, but I don't think so. The little guys. See, the small ones are going to drop in between like that. That's where they're going to go. And that'll be magic. So good. I have to do a little bit of mucking around to get those to fit, but not the end of the world. What's the next thing we're going to do? We're going to do the change of blade in the bandsaw. That's going to be so much nicer than walking all the way down there. It's going to be a whole lot better. I'm going to sort these out so that they're like, you know, organ pipes. They're all going to be in descending sizes. Everyone does this kind of stuff. Any thoughts on woodpecker's racket system for clamps if we could get it in Oz at a good price? David, I know that Rockler have a clamp support, like a bracket, and you know, they're probably fine, but I like making my own stuff. I'm a little bit funny like that. And as I say, it's not going to be hard for me to work around that. I may just get another piece of 4x2 or 90 by 45, whatever you want to call it, and put that in behind there to bring these proud. And that might be the easiest thing for me to do. As I say, as I'm going along, I nut these things out, and it's good fun. Hey Theo, how are you? It's all about problem solving on the run. That's where the greatest action. It is. Theo. Oh, here you go, guys. Whoop, don't break. Watch this. Tell me which one's the original. What do you reckon, Theo? They came up all right, didn't they? Just in case the light's playing tricks. Theo turned one of those up for me at the show, at the Timber, Wood and Artisans. I think that's the name of the show. I keep on... What are the size of the Bessie clamps that I own? Ah, okay. So what I've got is, I've got 12 50s, 1250s, that's in metric, which is a 48 inch. I've got 800s, so I have 4 of each, because I found that, you know, 2 is good, but 4 is better, no matter what brand you've got. You know, 4 clamps are great, because if I'm doing a square, and I can get all the same size on it, that's fantastic. If I'm doing a rectangle, well then I'll want different sizes. But a square, you know, when I'm doing a drawer, they're almost a square, normal size drawers, not the big ones that I've got here. And so rather than have the tail of the clamp hanging out a million miles out, you know, away and, you know, tripping over all the time, I find 4 of one size is great. So I've got 4 1250s, I've got 4 800s, I've got 4 600s and 4 300s. So that all up, 16, if my mathematics is correct. So you can see I've got the, there's the 8s, 1250s, 6s, and as I said, the 3s, this little guy here. I love it. How nice is that? All right, and I apologize for not setting them up in organ pipe fashion at this stage. More coffee. 11:45. Not a problem, Chris. My pleasure. I'm going to grab the other camera and bring it down here so we can see what's going to happen with the bandsaw, because a lot of people don't get changing a bandsaw blade correct. They do it slightly wrong, and it can be frustrating for them. Let's see if that's going to work. And also, you guys, I'll show you the, let's see if I've got that camera working correctly. That's not too bad. Okay, so this is my bandsaw, and this is the roll around cabinet finished, and you can see just how nice. It's a pleasure. I love this thing. It's beautiful. It's got handles in the top there, so I can wheel it around anywhere I want. All soft close drawers. Yeah, just magic. This one at the top I had to cut in, and what I did was this one as well. I kept the distance. These were all centered, these two, so I thought I'll work from the bottom on the top drawer rather than from the top, and work from the top on that one. So these were all the same distance apart. Just made it look a whole lot nicer. I've got handles on either end to wheel it around wherever I want. Now, the first thing we do when we're changing the blade on a bandsaw is this. Make sure that you've got it unplugged. I'm going to turn this around a little bit so I can see what's happening, and tip it up ever so slightly. Okay, I should be in the picture. There you go. It's my show. I've got to be in the picture. Okay, so unplug the thing. Don't do this, because your fingers are going to be all over here, and you know the bandsaw is going to win. That's all there is to it. Unplug the rotten thing, and you'll be good. That's out of the way. Whip that off. Whip the fence off, and you saw the little trick, the tip I told you during the week on Instagram. If you want to, you can reverse the hand of this fence very easily. Just here is a clamp. You undo that lock clamp that holds the fence on. Just here. Undo this, take it out, put it in the other side. Tighten it up, slide it back on, and all of a sudden, your fence is on this side instead of on this side. Makes a huge difference. If you're wanting to cut things with the table inclined. Next thing we do, on mine, I wind her all the way up. Get it all the way out of the way. This thing's got a 14-inch depth capacity, which is fantastic. Okay, then on here, there is a table aligning bolt. We take that out. Mine's still a bit tight because it's still pretty new. Got it? The purpose of that is to keep both sides of the table perfectly parallel on the top. When you put the clamp in and tighten it up, it pulls them up perfectly. This slot here is so that I can slide the blade out. Next thing I'm going to do is pull out the insert. So I have the insert and the alignment bolt out of the way. I'm going to move that to the top so it's not as inclined to hit me in the head. Next thing we do is undo all of the blade guides, move them out of the way. This one is pretty much tool free for adjusting everything. And the thrust race, I'm going to pull it back as well at the top. And I'm going to do the same to down the bottom. The thrust race on that one I'm not going to move. I'm just going to move these bottom blade guides out of the way. And they roll, on my saw, the top ones roll this direction and this direction. On the bottom guides, they roll this way and this way. So just a little tip. Now, on my saw also on the back, I'll show you quickly, and this is on a lot of saws, and look at this, I'm not moving the saw by the table because I was roused on the other week by some people about it, and fair enough. Mine's on a mobile base, and I put mine on a mobile base the day that I got it. So as I was taking it off the trailer, I had the thing on its spine, laid over flat, or on the spine I should say, and I fitted the mobile base to it straight away. Getting confused which camera here. And then tightened it up, took it off, wheeled it in. Didn't have the table or anything like that on it at that stage. Now, up the top here, I have a blade or a top wheel assembly lever. Now, when it's down, it's tensioned. When it's pushed up, it's loose. That's a pretty good feature. All right, now I'm going to spin the thing around again so you can see what's happening from the front. Making sure that power cable is not going to get run over. About there, working out where I am. Now, once I've got it there, I'm going to take it off drop it back down onto the base again so it's a little bit more stable. All right, now I have the cabinet open, and this area here is where the blade tracks back up. It's all concealed, so it's not going to be dangerous to you. You see some of these beautiful old antique saws, and I might tip that around a little bit further. You see some of these beautiful antique saws, and the blade is exposed absolutely everywhere. And it looks beautiful, but I'll tell you what, one little sneeze or something, you bump your arm, whoop, lost it. There you go. What's that on the floor? It's your arm. Anyway, so now what we do is we lower this blade guard again, not too far, just so that the top of the blade guard is in line with the axle on the wheel here. Okay, because it has to come through here. If it's all the way up, it can't get into there. So it's very easy. Just take it off. Now the bigger blades, this is my rip blade, the bigger blades are a little bit more awkward because they're stiff. Now if you wanted to, you could put gloves on. Yeah, it's probably a really good idea. Watch your face when you're doing this as well. I'm pulling it clear of the bottom lot of guides, lining it up with the slot in the side of the table, and out she comes. There's the blade. That's pretty easy. Quick question, should the blade guides be spanner tight or just finger tight? The blade guides on this saw, that's all finger adjustment. There are no spanners to be used on it. You'll notice there's an Allen key or an Allen head bolt that holds the bearings and the finger part on this one. They're only to hold the whole bearing assembly back onto the mount. They're not for tightening. That's the tightening right there. Great system. Okay, now, if you want to, I'll show you how you can fold a blade. There's a couple of ways. I've done one where I had it like so, and I pushed it up against a bench and folded left over right. Now there's another way where you use your foot, and it's probably better for this size blade. I'll tip this down a little bit so you can watch. Okay, come back to about here. You put your foot on it, and then you rotate. You push down and rotate at the same time. Come on, down you go. There she goes. You see that? Now I'm going to push down, and it's going to roll over. Give me a second. There she goes. Like so. Done. Now it's very, very easy and probably the safest way. Again, use gloves to handle it all, but do not use gloves, and this is pretty important. Don't use gloves while you're using the saw, unless of course you're in a meatworks and you're wearing those special gloves that will catch and turn the saw off straight away. They're specially designed for the meat industry. But if you wear gloves when you're using one of these saws with timber going through, and the glove catches, it's going to pull your hand in. That's all there is to it. And it's going to make a mess. I would rather get a little nick on my finger rather then my hand get pulled in by the glove. So it's a debate. I know a lot of people swear by using gloves with it, but you know, you will never see me wear gloves with my bandsaw ever, or with my table saw. It's the same thing. Never, ever, ever. One of the things with these things, loose clothing, long hair, gloves, bad move. Bad, 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 bad move. Don't give it anything to get a hold of you and drag you in. These things are great. It's like electricity. Fantastic servant, horrible, shocking master. I remember that from when I was at school. How do you find dust extraction under the table? All depends on the power of the dust extractor. These things require a very strong dust extractor. 2 horsepower minimum, 3 horse would probably be even better. So if you can get up around about 1200, even 2000 cubic feet a minute, it's going to be a whole lot better. Look, just the nature of the beast is that on this particular one, it's got really good dust extraction, but you also need a good dust extractor to make it work. So either underneath here, I'll show you quickly. And the good thing about these, I can sit that there now. See that? It's not going anywhere. Now, I would normally put a zip tie around that, and we're done. Let's have a look under here. I'll show you what I mean. So on mine, it has, if I come around this side a little bit, you might be able to see it better. It's got 2 dust ports. It's got one up the top and another one down the bottom here. The reason the one in the bottom here is because if you've got a really dull blade, you do not want any sawdust building up down here. A dull blade will burn timber, and you might find that if you're doing it too much, it gets so hot that you might get an ember in here and it might start a little fire, and you may not see it. You may not see it until after you shut the door to the shed, and then it's going to be too late. So dust extraction down here is very important. This one has also got a couple of brushes. You can see here, there's one brush that cleans the wheel. So any dust that's left on the wheel, on the tire, it gets knocked off and drops down here. And there's also another set of brushes here. And I think you can see it, they shed the dust off the blade straight away and start sending it down that dust port there. Okay, so it's pretty good design. I guess it's a design that a lot of companies have got. And this has got a flat multi-V belt on this one. You know, but the dust has got to get from up there and then into there. A lot of dust you'll find does actually come off the blade here and will sit up the top. And you know, it's a thing for just about all bandsaws. You'll get a lot of dust collection there. But I clean mine after I use it. One of the things I love about this one, it's got a blade compartment down here. So my other blades, they all live down here. So I think I might put a 3/8 blade on now. I've got a 6x6 and I've got a 10x6 as well. So I'm going to put that one in there, and I'm going to put the other one in there because they're all the same length. Push them in. How's that? Done. Now I know where they are. I don't have to go looking for them. All right, bring this back up here. Now, as I say, that is basically, that's on this particular saw, and a lot of saws are going to have exactly the same, if not slightly different way of doing it. So, you know, the whole thing is about showing you how this happens generically. Now I'm going to put my foot on that, and I'm going to undo it the way that it was done up. There we go. And no cuts. See? Undo things the way you put them together. Now, here's another thing. I had someone say to me, Dave, the blade on my saw wasn't cutting. It was, you know, nothing was happening. And what had happened, the blade, when he undid it, had inverted itself. So it was inside out. So when he put it on, all the teeth were pointing up. They weren't pointing down. So, you know, something to keep your eye open for. That sounds like an interesting thing there, John. Are you getting a haircut soon there, Dave, for safety reasons? You know, I thought someone might make comment. It's winter. As you know, Glenn, you're nearby in Katoomba. It's going to grow for a while until spring happens, and maybe even during spring it might stay for a while. We'll see what happens, and then I might come back to looking respectable again. But in the meantime, I'm a mountain man when I'm going to grow my hair, and Vicky says, "Oh, you look like Yosemite Sam with the moustache and everything." Well, there you go. To put a new blade on, just slide it back in through that slot, rotate, and then make sure that it's going to be into the areas where the guards are, or where the guides are, I should say. And I'm checking down there now to make sure, and I'm in where the brush is. Put it in up the top, up through here, onto the wheel, onto the top tyre, in that gap, pull it down onto the tyre at the bottom, and that's just great. All right, centre of the tyre. Now, I know there's a fair few people that say that the teeth have got to be on the centre or the crown of the tyre. And if they want to do it that way, that's great. Good on them. I don't. I always have the centre of the blade on the centre of the tyre. So for my big rip blades, all those really aggressive teeth are going to be hanging out a little bit and not chopping my tyre up. That's my reasoning behind it, and that's why the reasoning as well when the manufacturers that make the saws, they also recommend that's how you do it. So, you know, I don't want to be doing anything different because, you know, I want to promote a name for myself. This is the way that we're told to do it. Do it. Now I'm going to go around the back and move that lever into the down position, and that's going to tension the blade. See, it's going to push that up. Beautiful. Now on this particular saw, I have a crank here. So I can detension, and I've got a big lever here that's on this assembly. And how do I know? How do I know where to find that thing? I forgot to bring it in. Give me a second. Ah, David. I was pretty sure I brought down the manual on this particular saw. I may not have it here, but not to worry. Doesn't matter. Just checking over here. It's probably up in the office. So they have a chart for this saw, and it tells you for the different width blades as a guide what tension you should have here. Now this will work for if your blade is not exactly the standard length. You might have one that might be, say, 10 or 20 millimeters longer. It's still going to work on tension from this spring here. So you'll be fine with that. How often should blades be sharpened? I don't know. When you notice that there's burning happening, or if you notice the cut's not so clean anymore, or sometimes it's going to be cheaper just to buy a new blade. Like these things, I think are about, depending on the size of the blade, the real small ones and the real big ones are more expensive, but your run-of-the-mill blades are about 20 bucks. And if it's going to, someone just made comment that it's going to cost $15 to get them sharpened, you can get them sharpened if you want to, or, you know, your call, whatever you want to do. But the answer to that basically is as soon as you see burning. Now, the good thing about this, apart from having that window there for tensioning, and I'm going to tension it up a little bit more, let's say to about there. Now with this particular saw, that's all good there. I can now close the cabinet up, and there's a micro switch in there anyway as well up the top. A lot of saws have that, where if the door is open, it turns the saw off. You can't start it. Where are we up to? Nearly 12 o'clock. So now what I do is, ordinarily I would lower it to the height of the timber that I'm going to be working on, and I know that all of the races are away, so I can relax these ones, and I can just slightly bring it in until it's just kissing the blade, and this one as well, till it's just, we don't want it actually touching. If it is just touching, well, you know, it's going to spin the bearing too much. This bearing keeps spinning all the time, it's going to wear it out. So you want it so that as the timber is going through, the blade is, if it's wanting to wander off a bit, the bearings there are going to say, no, don't do that. Stay back where you were. You're going to do the bottom set. And there. And the other thing is to make sure that the blade is tracking in front, the gullets are in front of the bearings. So the gullets are the depression in the bottom of the blade. So you've got the tip of the blade, the teeth, and it comes down and then comes back up to the next tooth. The bottom of that dip, that's the gullet, and we need to make sure that it's all advanced past that. Otherwise, you're going to flatten the set on the blade. Instead of the teeth being, like that, it'll bring them up like that, and it won't cut anywhere near as well. I'm going to put the insert back. That's nice. And this guy here, slide him in. This one's a little bit tight on mine. I don't know if that's going to be... I could. There we go, that's going in. I could get a... That's very tight. I could just give this a quick grind. See, on the nut on that is just touching a little bit too tightly. It's good to have pretty good tolerance. Oh, it goes in better down the bottom there. That's what it was. It's good to have good tolerances, but not too much. So when I tighten this up, and I can release that and put it back under there, that's perfectly flat now. That's really good. Don't do that while the blade's running. Okay, so now I can relax this and lower it down. And so I've got a little bit of adjustment to do there. A little bit of adjustment to do there. All good. The thrust race, I can bring back up to it now. The thrust race on this has got a bit of a groove in it. And one of the great things about this saw is, again, there's a whole lot of other saws have the same thing, and it has a viewing window in the side. I don't know if you can see it, but just here is a viewing window. Now what that lets me do, take it off the base again, how handy a mobile base is. What that lets me do is when I turn the saw on now, I can adjust the tracking via the back here to make sure that the blade is tracking perfectly where I want it to. Counterclockwise, I think makes the blade track towards the front of the cabinet, and clockwise makes it come towards the back of the cabinet. So that's how I can get it tracking on the tire, and then I can adjust the whole assembly here backwards and forwards on this one arm as well. Again, on a lot of saws. I think that's enough on the bandsaw. We've probably got people falling asleep saying, yeah, good on your bandsaw. I haven't got one. Well, I understand that. Where are we? Back to this camera here, transition. And have a quick read. Release and tension. Took a while, a break for a while, have not got a bandsaw. I thought so, Alan. Not always, also poor setup, wet wood, and plinth on blade, hardwood saw, closing, burning, but the burning usually leads to a blunt blade quickly. Right, okay, so I haven't jumped in there, David. A lot of stuff's been talked about, and I haven't been able to see it. Let me see what else we got. Don't the clamps look fantastic behind me? I might start doing the show from here all the time. How do you measure a blade? Okay, on my docking station, I've got a tape that runs out both sides. With a blade, you open it all the way up with the teeth facing away from you, and you get a marking pen, like a Sharpie or a felt marker or a texter or whatever. Put a mark on it at 0, and then you slowly roll the blade, holding it down, until you come back to that mark along your tape. Now you can do it just by putting a tape measure along a bench as well. And there you go, that's the length of your blade. Pretty easy. John, you enjoyed the information, yeah? All right, tidy those cables first. Yeah, I'll tell you what, John. This is the real David. No, it's not. No, that's the bane of my contention. Where are we? So we changed the bandsaw blade. We clamps consolidating space, and I'm going to muck around with that a little bit more and get it perfect. So it's really nice. Track saw tip, the splinter guards. I showed you how to make sure that the ends and the beginnings of your tracks have perfect splinter guards. Viewers' question, the 2.5 and 3 horsepower saw. Quickly before we go, I'm going to do a couple of viewers' things here. So we've got Bob Macker, and I'm going to throw this picture up, and I hope I've got something to read. Here we go. So Bob, clear. G'day, Dave. Well, my trend half mask arrived during the week. It works as a treat. No fogged up glasses. Anyone that wears glasses and needs a mask, get one. Now, what's the next photo he's got here? This is some photos of my Stanley Sweetheart number 80 scraper plane. This is what I mentioned last week that Bob had. Good for the finishing of large jobs, and for the tight bits, take the blade out and use to finish. Forgot that I had this when I commented read the chisel. This one was made in Canada and has the SW heart strike on it. There you go. There's a few other things there that Bob has said, but regarding dust extraction and what have you. But that will do us for that for the moment. And now we go over to Louis. Now Louis is in Norway and he's rebuilding his miter station. And it's coming up a treat. Now Louis's got a track system at the front. Let me go to another picture first before we go there. So this is on the left hand side before he got that last part done. He's got those crates there to hold the CapEx up. In the meantime, we go back to that first photo, and now he's got the cabinet in. I put them in the wrong order. Now he's got a similar system on the front that I've got on the Stanton bench. The good thing about that is that it's going to hold the joints together really well when he comes to screwing them together or what have you. He's going to be limited by the width of the bench there, where with my particular bench, because it's a free form item, it just sits on anything you've got, there is no limitation to what you can put on it or behind it, just a little bit of extra support. But that's a great system. Now also, that top track, Louis devising a sliding stop that he's going to be using for the CapEx as well. And I'll go back to that first photo and you might understand where we're talking about. So that track runs right along the front, on the top and on the side. Now Louis is going to make something up that's almost like a triangle, and it's going to have possibly 2 T-bolts in it and a square coming back towards the back of that unit. So he'll be able to slide that along and clamp. He'll probably have a tape measure on there of some sort as well, and that will be his stops on his fence, rather than having a fence at the back, which is the way that people conventionally have done it, which is the way that I've done it. I know a lot of the other YouTubers have gone to this kind of system where they put a T-track in the bench right along. Yeah, I'm not going to change mine because I have my cabinets and everything behind that setup, and it works very well for me the way that it is. But I'm fortunate I have a bit of space here as well. All right, I think that's going to be about it. What's happening in your shed, we want to see, just like Louis sent photos in, jump on to the Dave Stanton Live Facebook page, the chat group. There might be things that we've talked about on the show, or you might want to run it past that closed group, because it's you have to apply to get into this group, and you may feel as though you don't want to expose your knowledge or lack of knowledge possibly to the rest of the world, only just to a little group that that are going to be very supportive, and the guys in there are very supportive, guys and girls. So when I say guys, remember I mean guys and girls. You like this show, did you, Barry and John? Well, thank you very much. I try and get things that are going to be pertaining to what people do. Now, I've got people that have hand tools, and probably next week I might do a little bit more on sharpening. I might also make a jig. There you go, there's something I might do. I might make a little jig that you can use with a handheld power saw, and that could be good. So there we go. Thank you everyone for watching. I think I've got everything covered. I don't have a competition this week. I might see if I can get one running for next show. I'll have a chat to a couple of the suppliers and see what we can do. But there we go. Thanks for watching. Look after yourselves. Be nice to each other. And I shall see you next week. Bye.